Hello, everybody. So today what I want to talk to you about is some common measurements that you might find on welding blueprints. The first one you'll find is fractional inch graduations. This is something that you'd be very familiar with if you've used a tape measure or a ruler that's a US tape measure or ruler. It's a measurement that we're most common or most used to seeing in the US. And it's broken into fractions of an inch. So, for example, here I have three examples. We have 1.5 inches, and that's 1.5 inches. We have 3/8 of an inch, and then we also have 1 foot, 6.5 inches. And these are designated by the foot is this apostrophe marker, and the inches are the quotation mark. The next is a measurement that's commonly used in machining in the US. And this is decimal inch graduations. And the way works is you still have your whole number for your inches, but then it's broken out with decimal points after that. Commonly down to you have a tenth, hundredths, and a thousandths of an inch. For welding, we're not going to really get into anything less than probably a tenth of an inch. So on one side of a ruler, if you have a decimal ruler, you'll typically have a tenth division where each division mark is equal to 1/10 of an inch. And then on the other side, you'll either have 50 divisions where each one of those divisions is equal to 2/100ths of an inch, or 100 divisions where each one of those divisions is equal to 100 of an inch. And like I said, most welding, we rarely are worried about the 50th or the 100th of a divisions, because the way when you weld the metal moves enough that accuracy of this kind of is really hard to do. So until you get into like really specialty welding, you're not going to be dealing with that much accuracy. And so the third type is one that is used most widely around the world, just not so much in the US, and that's the metric graduations. And the metric rule is graduated into millimeters. And so metric systems is a 10-based system. And I've got some examples here of the metric system. And these would probably be what you would be dealing with is millimeters and nothing smaller than that. And so 10 millimeters is equal to a centimeter. 10 centimeters is equal to a decimeter. We don't commonly use that very often. 10 decimeters is equal to a meter. So that means that 100 centimeters is going to equal a meter. And then 10 meters is equal to a decameter. Once again, a measurement that's not commonly used, but 1,000 meters is equal to a kilometer. That is a commonly used measurement. And the conversion for this is really simple because it's all base 10. So to go from one value to the next is really simple. Where like with the standard system that we use in the U.S., we have 12 inches in a foot and 5,280 feet in a mile. The measurement is it's not super simplified to do the conversion from one to the next. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is some common math that we might find when we're using fractions. If you're using a fractional system, so for some of you this might just be really simple refresher, and for other of you it might just be a good refresher anyway. So what I want to do is I'm going to go through some basic. We're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And so the first example here is the addition. And so when you're adding, you need to get a common denominator. I started off with one that has a common denominator already. The denominator is the number that's on the bottom. Numerator is the number that's on the top. So when you have this, you add your two numerators together and you keep the denominator the same. So in this case, we have 1 plus 1 is 2, divided by 2 is equal to 1. So 1/2 plus 1/2 is equal to 1. So down here is a little bit more complicated. We have 1/2 plus 3/4, and in that case we need to get a common denominator. We know that 2 goes into 4, so if we just double this value, so we get 2 over 4 instead of 1 over 2, and we add that to the 3/4, we then get 5/4, and 5/4 is equal to 1 1/4. So, and the way you know that is because 4 goes, this could be written as 4 over 4 plus 1 over 4, and 4 over 4 is 1 plus a quarter, right? And so subtraction is very similar. For subtraction, all you're going to do is you want to get another common denominator. So I did basically the same numbers here to keep things simple, but our common denominator is going to be 4 again. We need to multiply this times 2 to get that common denominator. So we have 3/4 minus 2/4 is equal to 1/4. For multiplication, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply straight across. So we get 1 times 1 and 2 times 4. And that's equal to 1/8. And if you say this out, this math makes sense, because 1/2 of a quarter is 1/8, right? So it doesn't make sense if you're just looking at it and you're thinking, well, I'm multiplying two things together, how am I getting a smaller value? But if you actually say it out, it makes sense then. And then down here, we're doing division. And division's a little bit more complicated, but also pretty simple. And what you do with that is you take your first value, leave it alone, and then your second value, you're actually going to flip your numbers. So in this case, we have 1/2 divided by 1/4. That's the same thing as 1/2 times 4 over 1, because we flipped this one. We multiply them across, so we get 4 over 2, and that is equal to 2. So that's some simple fractional math. We covered that in class. I'm gonna just put out a really quick, shouldn't take you very long at all, maybe 10 question homework. I'll post that up at the same time I post this video. If you can get that turned into me, we can turn it in the Friday after class. That way, if you guys had any questions, you can ask them during class, and we'll be good to go. All right, I'll talk to you later.